So I welcome you back to the second part of the new chapter that we have started in the previous class. And over there, I cleared your concept that what excretion is and what waste materials, the nitrogenous waste materials we are producing in the body. So the scenario with the human body is that we simply cannot rely on the diffusion process to be removing those waste materials out, but rather than we are in the need of this specialized system, and that system that would be responsible for the excretion process. So we refer to this as an excretory system, we say. And as far as this excretory system has to be bothered about, so we must know that what components or what organs they make this excretory system. So we say that there would be the pair of the kidneys that we have with us, a pair of the ureter we will have in it. Then there would be coming up of this urinary bladder that I am writing over here, and then at the end, this excretory system would eliminate at the point of the urethra. So if you were to see this diagram of the excretory system. So the situation here is that when we take the excretory system out of the human body and when we try to place it on the table, so the sides of this organ system they would revert. So this is the kidney that I have with me, and if you were to see the positioning of this kidney, so you would believe as if this is coming on toward the right hand side, but you would never say right hand side, but rather than this is the left kidney with me. And here this appears to be on my left hand side, but this you would call this as the right kidney, we say. Out of these kidneys, there would be these tubes getting out, or the tubulated structure getting out, and this tubulated structure is what we entitle this as a ureter, we say. And these ureter, now they would be connecting themselves with this muscular bag kind of a thing, and this is what we entitle this as the urinary bladder. And from the urinary bladder there would be another structure getting out of it, and this is what we refer to this as a urethra. And this urethra would lie at the center of your penile organ, and this is the kind of a structure that would allow the urine to be removed out of your body. Now, at the same time, you see that since I have produced the waste materials in many parts of my body and then I was taking it into the blood plasma, so you see that this is the blood plasma that is taking the waste material to these kidneys that I have with me. So, from aorta, that we have this major artery in our body. So, from the aorta, there would be the renal arteries getting out, and these renal arteries they would be taking the waste materials into the kidneys, and ultimately, these kidneys they would be rendering the role of removing the waste materials that would be available within the blood plasma. And afterward, the blood that would get out of the kidneys, so this would leave the kidneys with the help of this vein that we have, and this vein is the renal vein, and this renal vein ultimately would be taking the filtered blood or the clean blood into the inferior vena cava, and that inferior vena cava would go back to the heart, we say. Now, here you see that the examiner has a criteria that okay, if you have these kidneys with us, then you must be aware of that how come the longitudinal section of this kidney would appear. And by the longitudinal section of the kidney, what I mean is like if we were to have this kidney and if I were to cut this kidney along the length, then that would reveal the longitudinal section of the kidney. Now, if you were to see this diagram, if I were to zoom it out for you, so you see that this kidney actually has got two major regions in it. Now, on the outside of the kidney, what we have with us would be a cortex present, and this is entitled as a renal cortex. And when we go below the cortex, so at this point, we have got the other, you could say, part of the kidney, and the second part of the kidney is what we entitle this as the renal medulla, we say. And you see that at the top of the kidney there would be the presence of these glands with us, and these glands they would be the adrenal glands. And if you were to see it more, so the blood is going into the kidneys with the help of the renal artery, and the blood filtered blood is getting out of the kidney with the help of the vein, and that vein is the renal vein, we say. Now this is asked in the paper that how come this could be, you can identify this as an artery and this as a vein. So if I were to make a diagram, for you that comes the way it is in the paper. So you see that if you were to say something that is entering into the kidney but having a narrow lumen, so you would be referring to this as the renal artery. So this would be carrying the blood into the kidney. And if the examiner would show you the blood vessel and that have got a kind of a wider lumen in it, and that would be taking the blood out of the kidneys, so this would be the renal vein with us. Now, the scenario would be that these renal arteries, they have brought the blood having a lot of waste materials in it, and when this would flow into the kidneys, so over there we have some small functional units, they are the nephrons, and those nephrons, when they would take the waste materials out of this blood, so ultimately the blood would get out of the renal vein, and this would not have the waste materials in it. Now I can't say that 100% of the waste materials would be removed within the kidneys, but most of them would be removed off. So here is the clean blood that is getting out of the kidneys with the help of this renal vein that we have got. And you see that this thing or this structure that is drawn here, so this is the ureter with us, and this ureter would be carrying the urine. Okay, and what the urine is, that would be the mixture of the nitrogenous waste materials, excess ions, and the vitamins and the minerals, and ultimately the urine would flow to the urinary bladder then, and from there we would try to be removing the urine out of our body. Now, since every organ that we have got in the body, so we must be aware of their description as well or the explanation as well. So if I were to talk about the kidneys, we know that they are the bean-shaped organs and that filters the blood. Then there came the ureters with us. So these were the tubes that would connect the kidney to the bladder, and within the ureter, there would be the peristalsis movement, and that peristalsis movement would ensure that the urine does not backflow, but rather than this is carried forward into the urinary bladder from the kidneys. Now, when we were to have this urinary bladder with us, so this is a muscular bag, and this muscular bag would store the urine that have excess water, salts, and urea in it, and that urine we produced in the kidneys. Afterward, we have this urethra with us, and this urethra, as I've shown you above, this was a tube, and this would connect the bladder to the exterior of your body so that we be able to be removing the urine out of the body. Now, since the kidneys are rendering the role of filtering the blood, so we must be very much clear about the structure of these small filters that we have got within the kidneys, and these are entitled as a nephron, we say. So, what nephrons are? They are the functional units in the kidneys, and these functional units are something that would filter the waste materials out of the blood plasma so that we can make the urine out of it. So, in order to be understanding the process of the urine formation, your idea of the nephron should be very much clear. So, if I were to quickly show you the diagram of the nephron, so this is the nephron that I have got with me. So, you see that at the very beginning, I have got this U-shaped structure with me. Okay, so this is referred to as the Bowman's capsule. Again, from the Bowman's capsule, when I'm going forward, so here you see we have got some zigzag kind of a tubulated structure. So this part that gets out of this Bowman's capsule is what we call this as the proximal convoluted tubule, or we refer to this as the first coiled tubule. And this first coil tubule or the PCTA would run downward, and this part that we have here, so this is entitled as the loop of the Henle, we say. Now from the loop of the Henle, when we go upward again, so here we are making the other part of the nephron, so this is referred to as the distal convoluted tubule, or in other words, we also call this as the second coil tubule, and the second coil tubule would enter into these ducts that we have with us, and these ducts, they are the collecting ducts. Now a while ago I told you that the kidneys have two layers. The outside we have the renal cortex, on the inside we have the renal medulla. So here I am making this demarcation with the dotted line, so you see that this part, this one, so this would lie within the renal cortex, the outer layer of the kidney, and this lower part that I am highlighting at the moment now, so this part would be lying within the inner side of the kidneys, and that was the renal medulla with us. So some part of the nephron is in the renal cortex and some part of this nephron is within the renal medulla. Now, the scenario is that I also have to make sure that there should be the blood coming to these kidneys. So you see that within this Bowman's capsule, we have got this kind of tuft of capillaries. Okay? Like this is a lot of the blood capillaries that we have got, and they are embedding into the Bowman's capsule. So these blood capillaries are what we call this as the glomerular capillaries. And in these glomerular capillaries, there would be the blood plasma present, and in the blood plasma, we have got the waste materials. And from these glomerular capillaries, some part of the blood plasma they would be filtered out and they would be making a filtrate here in the Bowman's capsule, and that filtrate would be termed as the glomerular filtrate, we say. But that we will see in a while. But here you have to be very much clear about that how come this part of the nephron this actually looks like. So I have made this here, and you see that the situation is that here we had these glomerular capillaries, and on the bottom we have got with us. So this is the Bowman's capsule. Okay, and within the Bowman's capsule we have this empty space, and this empty space is what we entitle this as the lumen, we say. And the other thing is that when the renal artery would enter into your kidney, so it would divide into the arterioles, and these arterioles that have got a wider kind of a lumen in them or a diameter in them. So this is the afferent arteriole with us. From the afferent arteriole, the blood would go into the glomerular capillaries, and when this blood has to go out of the glomerular capillaries, so this would come into this arteriole that we have with us, and this is entitled as an efferent arteriole, we say. Okay, so I hope you would be clear with the structure of the kidneys and the nephrons that we have. Now, the idea is that the time we take something out of the blood plasma coming into here, so all of this space is an empty space. And this part of the nephron is also being, you could say, wrapped up by the blood capillaries. Like not only we have these glomerular capillaries, but some branches of the blood vessels would get out over here, and then they would try to be surrounding this other part of the nephron as well, and this has got an advantage for us that we will see in the process of selective reabsorption. Now, since I was saying, you could say again and again that we have to take some materials out of the blood plasma. So we would clear our concept of the blood plasma so that in the next class when we would be talking about the urine formation, so you must know that what this blood plasma actually is and why this is important in terms of the urine formation. So here I'm taking you to a thing that how come this blood plasma would be taking the waste material. So you see I have these cells with me, they respired aerobically and we have made the CO2 here and some of the excess metabolic water that we have made within the mitochondria. So you see they are coming into this blood plasma. The liver produce a urea, so this again is coming into the blood plasma. These muscles that we had with us, so they produce a creatinine, and this creatinine is again diffusing into the blood plasma. From the breakdown of the nitrogenous bases of the DNA, since we made the uric acid, so this uric acid again is going into the blood plasma. And from the diet, any of, you see, we have got this mouth, and from here we have taken the excess water ions and the minerals and the vitamins in our body. So these excess water ions, vitamin and the minerals, they again are present within the blood plasma. So what this blood plasma would do, that it would take all of these things to the heart. From the heart, we would take this blood to the lungs, and in the lungs, when the blood is coming from the heart, so this would be done with the help of the pulmonary arteries. When the blood has arrived in the lungs, so I would remove the CO2 out, and some amount of the water would be removed out, but we were not able to filter or we were not able to remove the urea, uric acid, and the creatinine and the stuff like that in the lungs. So the blood would be returned back to the heart with the help of the pulmonary vein. Now, the blood which is being returned back to the heart with the help of the pulmonary vein, no doubt this is the oxygenated blood, but it has got high amount of the waste materials in it. Now from the heart you see that the aorta is getting out, and this aorta would go into from the aorta the blood would go into the renal artery, and then this renal artery would take the blood into the afferent arteriole into the glomerular capillaries, and over there, at the level of the glomerular capillaries, we need to take something out of it, out of the blood plasma actually. So if I were to summarize this, so what we have in the blood plasma, so in the blood plasma, we know this overall is a yellowish liquid part of the blood and it has the water in it. This has the nutrients in it. Again, the nutrients includes the glucose and the amino acid. We have the waste materials in it, inclusive of CO2, the urea, uric acid, and creatinine. And we also have got some hormones in this plasma, like the insulin and the glucagon and the antidiuretic hormone. We will also have these antibodies in the blood plasma as well. There would be the presence of the minerals, the vitamins, and also the blood clotting factors that includes the prothrombin and the fibrinogen. So they are there in the blood plasma. So my concept should be that when I have to filter the components of the blood plasma, so we should only be removing the waste materials, and at any cost, we should not be removing these essential things that are the need of my body. So you should be very much clear with this composition of the blood plasma, because from this blood plasma I would be taking some materials out of it, and from there we would be making the urine. So you keep these things revised for the next lecture, where we would see the process of the urine formation that is accomplished by the ultrafiltration and the selective reabsorption thing. So see you for the next class.